just trying to remember everything, we do just naturally end up then forgetting things and dropping the ball. And then we beat ourselves up because we're dropping the ball. But it's all because we're trying to just store everything in our heads. And that's definitely something that I struggled with. And I do still struggle. I've got some strategies that I'm going to share with you today to help people to just declutter our minds and release some of that mental load.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Sleep Like a Boss podcast. I'm Anika Carroll, your host, and I am super excited to have Sarah Drew with me today, the Unapologetic Mompreneur. We are going to talk about a topic that I think so many women struggle with, and especially when it comes to sleep, and that is mental load. How do we declutter our brains, our lives, to be able to actually get sleep and feel well and don't overdo it and don't burn ourselves out? So, Sarah, you're a business and a life coach, and that is basically your mission, to help women thrive and have them live life more easily. And I'm just so excited to have you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here and just really looking forward to diving into this topic. Like you said, it's such an important one, and there are so many things that we can do to just reduce that mental load and ultimately get a better night's sleep. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Yes. Should we maybe tell us a little bit from maybe how you've experienced it yourself, or how you see clients struggle with mental load? Like what is that for you? How would you describe it? What happens? What comes up for people?
Yeah, sure. So I think the way it comes up for me is probably very similar definitely similar to what I see in my clients, but probably also very similar to all of the listeners on the podcast. Is it's just, as mums especially, and women, and having all of the things going on and being responsible for everything, and sometimes feeling like we are the cogs that keep our family turning, and that we're the ones having to remember and do everything, and all of that mental load of trying to remember all of the things, everything we need to do and organize and get together, and just general day to day. And then on top of that, of everything of running the home and getting things done around the house. And then you throw in birthdays and Christmases and holidays and everything else into the mix. All of that just really stacks up in our minds, and it just causes this fog where we just find it so difficult to think straight and trying to remember all of the things. And then that's when we start to do things like, our heads start buzzing, we get headaches, we get really, really tired, and we can't see the woods for the trees. There's so much going on. We find it hard to figure out what our priorities are and to just really assess what we need to do next. And that just trying to remember everything, we do just naturally end up then forgetting things and dropping the ball. And then we beat ourselves up because we're dropping the ball. But it's all because we're trying to just store everything in our heads. And that's definitely something that I struggled with. And I do still struggle. I've got some strategies that I'm going to share with you today to help people to just declutter our minds and release some of that mental load. But I did get to that point where I was just, and even now, sometimes when there's a lot going on, trying to remember everything, you just get that fog and you can't think straight. And I know it's definitely something that a lot of my clients, when we get together and we first start working together, and I take them through the 4 pillar framework that I have of love your family, love your home, love your business, and love yourself. And it's always that love yourself pillar that we need to dive into first, because they just come to me feeling so overwhelmed and like they're spinning in circles. They can't figure out what they need to be doing. They feel like they're just completely overwhelmed by their to-do lists, that everything is calling their name, that they're pulled every which way. And 9 times out of 10, a lot of it comes down to the fact that their minds are just buzzing, that we've just got so much going on in our heads that we just don't know where to start of either figuring out what to do next or how to just relieve some of that overwhelm so that we can then start thinking clearly again.
Yes, and I think it's I sometimes see it as an entrepreneur and a mom and a wife, like all the hats we all wear, right? It's this, especially if you have a point where creativity is required. If I just have to have some mundane tasks that I need to work on that I've done a million times, maybe that's okay. But not having brain space, specifically when it comes to being a little more creative, putting some thought into writing something, even if it's a newsletter or a blog post, or like preparing for a podcast, right? It's like if you just rush, rush, rush. I find I have no headspace for that. I literally cannot be creative because my mind is just full of things to do.
Yeah, totally. And it just clog, like you said, it clogs everything up, that we are not left with that mental space. And especially as, you know, we're running our own businesses as well, and we're entrepreneurs and everything is down to us, especially in the early stages of our business. And we have to wear all of the hats in our business. And we need that creative space. Like you said, the creative space for writing newsletters or designing, you know, the next social media posts and things. If we haven't got that mental space because it's being taken up by so many other things, we're not able to then have that creative spark goes, and then we just find ourselves staring at blank screens. We don't know what to do. And it also does it in our personal lives as well, because then if we're trying to get inspiration of what to get as a gift for somebody for their birthday, or new ideas for Christmas, or things to come up with and do and entertain our kids with on the weekends and the holidays, we're not able to think about those things and actually come up with and use that creativity, because our brains can only take so much, and it just constantly stacks and stacks and stacks. And then it can just take one more thing or one more request or something else coming in from somebody that's asking of us, and then that's when we hit that boom, and we just can't take it anymore. And then we just sit there going, you know, and we sob on the sofa or sob in the bathroom because we don't know what we need to do. And it does, especially as business owners as well, of having all of those hats, of just, you know, just taking away that creative spark.
And I don't know about you, but I personally see that for me too I see it with physical clutter. Like I was always like aiming to be more a bit of a minimalist type person. It kind of doesn't work so well because like stuff keeps creeping in, right? But I get to a point where I'm like, okay, I see I have a hard time keeping things under control in the house. So there's too much. Like, guys, can we go through stuff? Like, kids just get presents and gifts and everything keeps coming in, right? It's like, can we move stuff out of the house? And I think with mental load, it's kind of like a similar story. And then I think for some people, it might even be that if both, like for me, I know it's if they both come together, that is like that's red zone. Like that is, I don't want to be there. I'm not doing well. But I think the mental clutter really is kind of like, to me, it is kind of like a physical clutter in the brain. um, and is there a way, like, how would you approach that with a client? So they come, you say, you know, this is the me pillar, kind of that whole area about maybe even putting myself first or starting to work on what's going on in here. Why is there so much clutter in there? Like, what do you do? How do you, what people do if that's what they feel like?
Oh, it's such a great analogy, because actually there really is a real link between physical clutter and mental clutter. And but it's easier to spot the physical clutter because, you know, it's around us and we can see it. But when it's the mental clutter, we quite often we don't even realize that it's there until we've got to that point of overwhelm. And doing the physical clutter, you can just get rid of things. You can clear out a closet, you can clear out a drawer, and we know how it feels when we've done that. It feels amazing. And actually, even just decluttering our physical spaces frees up our mind as well, because we do find that we can feel fresher, that we feel more energized, that we can focus more clearly just because we've cleared our physical space. But the exact same thing goes for our mental space as well, because when we declutter our mental space, we are able to think more clearly. But it's knowing that that is, you know, that is one of the cases. And usually, like I said, when my clients first come to me and we look at that love yourself pillar, a lot of the time is that mental overwhelm, but it also is coupled with that, like you mentioned, of taking time for you and the well-being as well, because that's so important. Because if we're not taking care of ourselves and we're not filling our cups too, that's going to stress us out even more as well. That's going to add to the mental overload, because we just feel like we never have time for ourselves, or we feel guilty when we're taking time for ourselves, or when we do have time for ourselves, we don't know how to spend it. So then we'll go and do something around the house, and then we just end up in that perpetual cycle of not knowing what to do. But thankfully, like decluttering our homes, there are things that we can do to declutter our brains and clear that mental load. And I've got a few, like three main things that I like to do, particularly that then actually help us to clear out and close our day, to get focused, to offload our thoughts onto paper so that we can think more clearly, but also then so that when we have our evenings and we wind down, we're able to rest and unwind in the evenings without our minds buzzing, which means then we can go to bed and we rest easier in bed. We're not then doing that. We go to bed and we think we're ready for bed. We lay down, we shut our eyes, and then ping, our eyes are wide open and our minds are racing and we just can't switch off.
Or the other nasty one is you wake up in the middle of the night and bam comes that to-do list. Like it's like
Oh,
right in
yes.
front of your eyes. It's like, okay, tomorrow we're gonna do this. I have to do that. Did I write that down somewhere? Is this, have I done, right? It's just, yeah, if our minds are too busy, we cannot recover. Like we can't sleep. We don't feel good. What can we do? Let's dive into some of these strategies.
Yeah, sure. So my three main strategies that I personally do every day, and I always recommend that my clients do. And the very first one is to have a master task list. And that is just a list of everything that we can think of that we need to do. And I always recommend to my clients, and I always do it too, is that at least once a month, preferably, if we can't do once a month, make sure we check in with ourselves once a quarter and just get all of our thoughts out of our head and onto paper, because that will then help stop that mental load building up and up and up to the point that we reach combustion point. And so by getting everything down onto paper, having that master task list really helps keep the overwhelm at bay with the to-do list, because we think with having our to-do list that it's got to be this big long list of everything that we need to do and tick off each day. And then at the end of the day, we find that we have added more to it than we have ticked off. And then we beat ourselves up that we're not getting things done. But instead of having just a to-do list, if we have a master task list first, and we fill everything out that we need to, everything we're trying to remember, everything that we need to make, to organize, to order, to buy, to plan for, have all of that on that master task list. And then we can prioritize everything on there of what are the most important things that we need to get done. And then each day we can use that master task list to pick our 3 top priorities and create a to-do list for that day. And then it means that everything else is kind of in a parking lot and compartmentalized and away from our individual to-do lists. And that keeps that overwhelm at bay. It stops feeling and having that pressure that we're trying to do it all throughout the day. And then that we're not beating ourselves up at the end of the day because we haven't done those things that we need to do. So I always recommend my clients of having this master task list. That's first off, just to get rid of that clutter from our heads, to put everything down on paper. And then you can go through it and you can ask yourself, what is my top priority? What has to be done and must be done? So those are like all of the important things of getting birthday presents when it's somebody's birthday next week, or sending, replying to the next, you've got a client that you need to reply to an email to. All of the must-dos, the paying the bills, doing our business accounts, all of those things that are the musts, they are your top priority. And then underneath that is the next level is, okay, once I've done the musts, what is next? What should be done next once we have done those top priorities? Then you've got your nice to do's, the things that we put on there that we would like to do, but they're not quite as important as or as essential as your kind of your top 2 tasks. And then underneath that is the tasks that we can eliminate and get rid of, the ones that we, especially as mums and women that are every day trying to run the house and do all of the things, is that we put these things on our to-do list that don't need to be done, that it can stay on there for 6 months, and if we haven't done them already, it's a good sign that they don't need to be done on there. We can relieve ourselves from that pressure and scrub them from the list. And also all of those little tasks and things that we want to put on there that we think should be done, but actually only we would notice, that nobody else would notice if we'd done them or not, but they just make us feel good and they make us feel like we're achieving. And so relieving some of that mental load and getting your thoughts down onto paper and having that master task list running to the side all day, every day, that you can just add things to whenever you think of it. And then you can go through it and you can scrub anything from it that isn't important. You can work out what your priorities are. So I always say start with that first, is have that master task list that you can go to and you can say, right, this is what I need to work on right now. What are my top 3 priorities for today? And then you're giving yourself permission to leave the rest to the side, knowing that it's on that list, but you'll get to it when you need to. And it's okay if it doesn't happen today, because you've got your main tasks that are the most important. And then if you manage to get those done, you can go back to that task list and go, okay, what else can I do? And that's a bonus. So you're relieving that pressure. You're also feeling like you have accomplished for the day, and you're not beating yourself up then for the things that you didn't accomplish, because that's fine. There's still time. I can do that tomorrow. So when we have that master task list, I always suggest at the end of the day, which brings me on to the second one I'll dive into in a moment, is to then go through that and then just think, is there anything I need to add from that? And also, is there anything actually now that I can cross off of it? So having that master task list is super, super powerful. And anytime we start to feel like our minds are getting full again, or we can't think straight, go and do it again. Go and do another mind dump. Go and get everything down onto paper again. And by constantly doing it and having it in your diary to do regularly, that really helps stopping that mental load from creeping up on you without you realizing, because you're not then trying to remember everything. You've not got all of the to-dos and the don't forget this and remember you've got to phone whoever tapping away on your shoulder all day every day when you're trying to do all of the other things. So that's tip number one, is to have that master task list.
That is so good. Can I dive into that a little? Because I think the number one thing, and I had to relearn that as like a type A, go, go, go. And I was like, my value was how many check marks did I put on my checklist every day for a while? How empty is my email inbox when I was working in corporate still? Like that was my measure of productivity, and being very productive made me a good person. Like, I don't think that way at all anymore, but that is where I came from. So I totally know how you're describing it and how things just keep coming in, right? It's a never ending thing. And that is okay, because that's just how life happens. And I think that's so important what you said, and that's why I bring that up again. Giving yourself the permission to look at everything that is not a priority as a bonus. That's an extra. Great, well done. But if you didn't, also well done, because you got through what had to be done. That's all that really matters. And really the other one, I see this because I do this now. I now have an app where I literally put everything in. And if it's not on there, it's not happening. My brain, I'm not storing it. I can't. I just don't have the capacity. Like come your 40s and perimenopause, your brain's not as sharp as it was when you were 25. Like what's not in there is not happening. It's just gone. I can't, I'm not keeping a spot in my brain for it. And that actually works. And what the funny thing is, like you're saying, there are things on there that just get pushed to next Friday and pushed to the Friday after and pushed to the Friday after. And if I've done that 3 times, now I start sitting down and actually, do we really? Either it has solved itself by now because somebody else maybe did it, or it never needed to get done in the first place, right? But I think it's really this mindset change of focusing on the most important things. And I think the other thing, and I don't know what your thought is on that, but that's one thing I'm starting to put more and more on my list, because I haven't forever. They were always to-dos for the business, for other people. And talking about like me, myself as a pillar, like you were just saying, right? Like I'm putting myself on there. Like I'm making even a doctor's appointment for me, that's not self-care, that's something I have to, but even that, like when am I seeing my clients? Okay, so for the following months, when do I want to go get my hair cut? When do I want to see a doctor? When do I maybe want to get a massage? When do I exercise? And that's one of the things I really need to get better with, putting that on the calendar. But by putting these things on there and making them a priority, you kind of build these habits of then actually doing these things, right? That are those priorities that you made the priority.
Absolutely. And we have to make things a priority, because if we don't, they're not going to happen. And what you mentioned there of like bumping something from one Friday to the next, to the next, to the next, that is a really good indicator that isn't a priority right now. And you can question why, does it not matter? Have my priorities changed? Have my goals changed? It's okay to let it go, because sometimes I think we hang on to things and thinking because we put it on that list that it has to be done, but and the same when we set goals. But it's actually okay that sometimes that if we decide that we don't want to do it anymore, or it's not a priority, it's okay to scrub it from the list and let it go. And then the other side to that you mentioned as well is that it's so important to schedule time in for ourselves too. We have to do those things to fill our cup, and we feel guilty, and especially as moms and doing all of the things, that if we're just indulging in self-care and but it's not an indulgence, but if we're doing that we are we're then neglecting all of the other roles, and that we are not prioritizing everybody else, and it makes us selfish. But there is nothing more selfless than putting ourselves first, because when we fill our cups too, we can then take care of the ones we love, including our businesses. And we need to refresh and recharge ourselves, just not just to look after everybody else, but also to thrive in our business, but also to show ourselves that we are worthy and that we deserve as much care and love and attention as everybody else. And so that is the other side of what I look at in the Love Yourself pillar, is that we also look at our well-being, and are we making our well-being a priority? And are we getting it in the diary? Because back to those priorities, that if you don't make it a priority and put it in your diary, it's not going to happen. It's exactly the same for our self-care, because if we just put that on the list, and we think, oh, I must book my haircut, I must, it's that, you know, my nail, it's ages since I've had my nails done, or, you know, I haven't taken an afternoon off for myself in months. That if we are constantly bumping ourselves to the bottom of our to-do list for the sake of another load of laundry, or for the sake of sending one more email, whatever it might be, that is also going to build up that mental load, because we just get exhausted, we get burnt out, and we're back to that frustration that we're not making time for ourselves. So that is something that I always get my clients to do, is we sit down and go, right, what are you doing for your well-being? What is your self-care routine? How are you filling your cup to? What lifts you up and brings you joy? Go and make a happy list and put on there things that you love doing, whether it's dancing around the kitchen to your favorite tunes, or just sitting doing a few breathing exercises while the kettle is boiling. It doesn't matter what it is, but build those into your day, and set aside, when you are planning your week, like you said, you know, when do I want to have client time this week? What client calls have I got this week? Also, when am I going to get my hair cut? When am I going to have an afternoon to myself? For so long in my business, I spent so much time just thinking I had to hustle and work every single hour under the sun. And I had burnout twice because of doing that, and also frustration that I wasn't spending time with my family. So I had to draw things back. And now I don't work on a Friday afternoon. Those 2 or 3 hours from lunchtime, when I finish, to when I go get my boy from school, that's my time. And if I want to book any of my, you know, self-care appointments of nails or whatever, it gets booked in on that time, and I honor that time. I don't change it around. That is my time. And I always then have a look at when Harrison goes back to school after the school holidays. That first week that he's back, I find one day that week where it's just for me, so that I can have some time for myself. And I might just go and spend 2 hours browsing my favorite bookstore. But it makes all of the difference, because we have to have that time for ourselves. And it is so connected to that mental clutter, and having that time for us, and stopping that, you know, getting to that combustion point where we feel like our heads want to explode.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's just so something we really need to learn, right? And if we're working, even if we're working a job and we're like 9 to 5 tied up, we get the kids after that, then it's making dinner, getting the kids ready for bed, and you're just like, oh my God, I just need to, right? And you still have your head spinning, and you still have that master to-do list, and you're kind of planning for the next day. Like, is that something you do? Would you take that master, a project list, task list, and would you plan for the next day or the week? Is that how you do it? Or would you do like the next morning, you go look at it and you pick your most important points for the day?
Yeah, I definitely make it part of my day, because like you said about closing out your day, that is my second tip, is doing what you can to close out your day, so that you can walk away from, you know, the office, or if you work from home, and just know that you're set for the following day. And you can kind of, and I just like to spend 10-15 minutes at the end of my day where I will review what I've been doing. I'll check in on where I'm at, I'll look at my goals and figuring out what my next steps are that I need to focus on. But then I also take that master task list as well. And usually I have it split into two. I have a master task list for my business, and I have a master task list for home and family life, so that I can still have that little bit of separation there, and kind of those two hats, so that I know what I need to focus on without them getting muddled. But I like to spend those 10-15 minutes at the end of the day closing out my day. I will look at those lists and figure out what my next top 3 tasks are for tomorrow, just so that I know when I come down in the morning that I can get straight to work. I haven't got to try and get into the mindset of what is for today, but also that I know that I can then unwind in the evening, and I'm not sitting there trying to watch TV for, you know, once boys are in bed, and trying to figure out, you know, instead of relaxing, I'm then creating that mental list in my head again of what I need to remember. So I always recommend that you close out your day before you start your evening, before you go and start thinking about dinner and everything else as you close out your day, and you draw a line under what you've done. You give yourself a little pat on the back for what you have achieved, and you spend a couple of minutes just celebrating your wins, because I think it's so easy for us to just keep going and look on what the next thing is without actually taking a moment to pause at what we've accomplished that day. Whether it's big or small, it doesn't matter. We've still accomplished something one way or another. And so I think it's really important that we celebrate those wins as part of closing out your day, so that you can walk away, as you know, especially as running our businesses and where our offices are at home and my kitchen is just across the hallway. I can come out of here when I finish my day knowing that I've looked at and worked out what I've done. I've given myself a pat on the back for what I've achieved, but I've also figured out what my tasks are for tomorrow, so that I can then go into the kitchen and I can think straight and give dinner the attention it deserves without thinking about all of the things that I need to do tomorrow. So I always recommend my clients to close out their day and look through then that master task list as part of it, and see what the next most important tasks are that you need to think about for the following day with that. But then the other thing that I like to do that goes alongside that is, particularly for me, because I'm a type A personality but with an ADHD brain, so I love lists, I like being planned, I love having anything planned. But when I'm trying to work, my brain does not stop buzzing, and that's another thing that can cause that mental clutter. And trying to find that creative space when we're working is, if we're trying to focus on something and we're trying to get our work done, but our brain is still pinging of like, oh, I need to do that. Oh, I must remember to do that. Oh, and I must remember to do that tomorrow. And all of those things. I have a chatty mind notebook to the side of me on my desk. And anytime anything crops up on my brain when I'm trying to do something and I'm trying to focus, I literally just dump it into that chatty mind notebook, and I will come back to it as part of my closing out for my day. I'll spend a couple of minutes going through that chatty mind list that I've made during that day. And then I ask myself, what is the action step for that? Is it something that doesn't matter right now and I can ballpark it? Is it something I need to add to my Trello board? Is it something that needs to go onto my master task list? Is it something I need to add to my diary? And it just gives me that permission to ignore it while I'm trying to focus and work, but I know that I'm going to come back to it later, and I'll address that as part of the closing out of my day, so that it's all taken care of and I can walk out of my office resting easy and mind at rest, knowing that I've got everything set up for the coming day of what I need to do next. So yeah, that's my second tip, is to just spend a few moments closing out your day. And it makes all of the difference, because even if you find it easy to get focused first thing in the morning and think maybe I'll just do it tomorrow, just spending those 15 minutes in the evening before you go off and think about dinner and everything else, you will thank yourself much later when you come to sit down on the sofa in the evening and chill out before bed, or when you're getting into bed and you're trying to rest up, and then you're not trying to think of all of the things that you need to do and remember, because you've already taken care of it before you closed out your day.
Yes, that is so helpful. And I think one thing I like to do, and sometimes do with clients also with that, is kind of, if you're working from home, or even if you're somebody who works in an office but you bring your laptop and you're like, I'm still going to be try to not do those emails later in the day. Or if you did do that closing your day activity, then to really shut the system down of this is it. And I like to put my laptop away. Like literally, either you have if you have an office, yes, leave everything in the office. Don't start carrying these things around the house and leave the laptop everywhere, because your brain literally constantly, when you look at it, thinks, oh yeah, there's the to-do list in there. There's my emails that I need to do, right? Like really just, like you said, draw a line and leave it be for the day. You've done enough. It's good.
Definitely. And it's such, like you said, drawing a line onto it, that is the key, because by doing that, you're telling yourself and you're giving that signal to your brain that I'm done for the day. That's it. No more. I'm done. And definitely, like for me, it's easy because my laptop is in here with my office, that I will walk out of here and that's it. And I used to work so many evenings in the evening on the sofa with my laptop, and it was bonkers, because then, like you say, you then go into your emails, you go into your DMs, and that all starts again, and then you've got to restart that cycle of trying to wind down so that you can get and rest easy at night. So definitely, if you don't have your own office space at home, just shut that laptop down and put it away somewhere, whether it's in a drawer or wherever, it doesn't matter, just shut it down. But then also resist the urge when you're on the sofa be mindful of what you've got on your phone apps wise, so that you're then not tempted to just pick up your phone and do it instead. I've removed my emails apps from my phone for that very reason, because I would shut my laptop down, but then there was the temptation in the evening. I'd get a notification on Facebook, I'd go and look, I'd then go and check my DMs on Instagram. Oh, while I'm here, I'll quickly check my emails, and you're back in that cycle again, and it just defeats all of that closing out of your day. So yeah, definitely do what you can to draw that line under it, so that you can signal to your brain, I'm done now. Now it's family time, now it's evening, now it's wind down time, and it's my time. And it just makes such a difference.
Absolutely. What is, you were talking about 3 strategies. What's number 3?
Yeah, so the third one is it's very closely attached to the closing out of the day, and that is prepping for tomorrow. And so, as well as having taken care of your to-do list and everything and closing out your day, prepping for tomorrow is thinking, what do I need to get sorted that is going to make my life easier? Is it getting my gym clothes out so that I can just grab and go if I'm going to the gym in the morning? Is it making sure that the kids have got their homework in their school bag, that all of the non-perishable bits that don't need to be in the fridge can go in their lunchbox ready so that you're already set? Is it having the keys by the front door? Whatever it needs to be, that you can set your day up so that when you get up in the morning, you can hit the ground running feeling like you're winning already, that you're not like 5 minutes late of leaving the door, and then you realize that the homework or the PE kit isn't in the school bag. You've got to rush around and try and find it all. It literally only takes 10-15 minutes again to sort all of those things out. And it's tempting when we're done for the day to just think, oh, I'll do that tomorrow, I'm too tired, I don't care, I'll leave it. But actually, then in the morning you're rushed and stressed, you're spinning in circles, and you come back and you are just so frustrated before you even start your day that you're starting your day off on a bad foot. By taking those few moments, it really does make all the difference, because again, you can go to bed resting easy. You're not waking up in the middle of the night with that list of, oh, I haven't got the PE top out, it's still in the washing machine, it's not going to be dry, all of that sort of stuff. You're taking care of it before it even happens, and you're dealing with it, and you're being proactive rather than reactive. And being proactive and taking those steps of doing what you can to prep for tomorrow makes such a difference with that mental load. It just helps to keep that overwhelm at bay, because you're prepped, you're sorted, and you're ready to go. And you can get up in the morning, you can grab everything you need, and you're off to a good start, and you just feel like you're winning before you've even done anything.
That, I think that is so important. This feeling of I'm already ahead of the day. The kids are out the door and I'm not brutally exhausted because everything ran smoothly, kind of thing. I think that's a huge, that is just a huge feeling of peace and calm, and lets you not be in a hamster wheel all day.
Definitely, yes.
Yes. This is wonderful. So the master task list, focusing on your top priorities for the day, and that means really 3 things, not 15, right? Because otherwise we're
Definitely,
ending
yes.
up
Resist that
batting
urge, keep it to the 3.
Then closing that off at night, like really drawing that line under the day and telling the brain, we're done. Good job, we're done. And then quickly assessing, what do we need to do tomorrow? Because sometimes it might also be, right, we didn't get to one of the things completely that was important. Yes, that life happens, right? So we'll carry that over to tomorrow if we can. And then really starting to organize the next day so we run really smoothly. And this might sound small to some people. Try it, because I'm like, and it's a work in progress. Like, I'm a work in progress on this. And if I don't do it, especially the prepping at night for the morning, it's totally like, we get up at 6:30 with the kids, we go for school for 8:45. But we take our time in the morning sometimes. But then I'm like, oh, I didn't get this done, I haven't done this. And that's literally what I say. I'm like, 8:45, I'm already done. Like, I'm exhausted. And the days where everything runs smoothly, it's like, oh yeah, let's get to work. I'm super energized. No problem.
Yeah, that's it. And that's where it makes such a difference in that winning already, because that is what then gives us that motivation and that energy to then tackle our day. If we then get back at, like you say, at 8:45 and we feel like we're done already, we're not going to want to do anything. We're going to go off and do other things and get distracted, or throw in the towel, or go and watch TV. And we're just not going to do the things we want to do, because we've just not got the energy or motivation. But when we just if you only do one thing to start off with, pick that one, because that prepping for the day tomorrow, because that really does make all the difference. It allows us to get a decent night's sleep, because we're not trying to remember that we need to, I need to get the PKit together, or whatever it is, or I can't remember where I put my trainers, I've got my gym class in the morning. We're not thinking about those things when we go to bed. We can just get up, go grab it, and then we come back feeling like we've won already. We're crushing our day before we even start, before 9 a.m. And look at us go, and we're then fired up for the rest of the day. So yeah, it makes all the
Yeah.
difference.
And who doesn't want that, right? Tell me a little bit, because you run a podcast too, right? Tell me a
I
little bit about your
do.
podcast. Tell me about why you started it, what you're talking about, what people can expect when they come listen to the show.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So yeah, my podcast is called the Unapologetic Mompreneur, same name as my business. And it is all about tips and strategies, actionable advice, a little bit of tough but gentle love thrown in when needed. And just all about how to help moms and moms with a business to take back their time, their home, their businesses and themselves, so that they can feel like they've reclaimed their power, so that they can restore that work-life balance, that mompreneur life balance, however that looks to them and their family. And that they can then feel like they are thriving both at home and at work, without feeling like they have to choose between the two, but also being able to unapologetically create the life that they want for themselves and their family, that is on their terms, without worrying about what other people think. So we dive into all things mompreneurship, all kinds of ways of running and working at home and getting things done during your work day without being distracted with all of the things at home. I dive into all of the 4 pillars of love your family, home, self, and business, so that you can nurture all of those and feel like that they are giving and getting the attention that they deserve. We talk about goal planning and strategies and ways to run your business so that it fits seamlessly around the needs of your family, so that it's not rubbing each other up or against one another. And just how to pull it all together, but define it on your own terms, and giving yourself permission to do things in a way that feels right for you, rather than trying to conform to all of those needs and shoulds and all of that noise that's out there. So yeah.
This is so important. And I think while you're focusing on mompreneurs, I think there's a lot in there for moms in general, also for
Definitely,
families
yeah.
in general, even like this goal setting, how to manage it all in a way that works for you. I think that's the important thing, right? And often we don't take the time to actually sit down and do that assessment. Like we see something's wrong, but we can't really pinpoint it, or
Yeah.
we don't know how to change it, or we don't feel comfortable changing it. So I think that's wonderful. I think that is so good. So guys, go check that out. If people wanted to follow you more, learn more about you, and maybe work with you, where do people find you?
Yeah, sure. So the best place is my website, which is the unapologeticmompreneur.com. And on there is the links to the podcast and all of the different ways that you can work with me. And there is an opt-in on there for my 5 to Thrive Sunday series. So if you want to get tips into your inbox every Sunday evening on how to just literally apply all of the things that we've been talking about today and that I share on the podcast, then there's a link for that on there to sign up as well. And you can find me on all of the social channels at the Unapologetic Mompreneur. So yeah.
Awesome. Sarah, thank you so much. This was so valuable.
You are
Thank you
very
for all you
welcome.
do. And everybody, go check out Sarah's website, check out her Instagram if that's where you're hanging out, and go listen to the podcast. And thank you for having been on this week's episode, Sarah. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And we'll see you again and hear you again shortly.